Hi, my name is Sarah Comerford, and today I'm going to show you how to make Twinkies. Yes, Twinkies, the good kind. So today, the first thing I'm going to start with is making the filling. And it's very, very simple. I'm just going to take 2 tablespoons of flour and a half a cup of milk. Go right on over to the stove and start cooking it down. I'm going to cook it for about 5 minutes until it becomes a thick paste. So this is the thickness that you're looking for. It looks kind of gluey. And while that's cooling for about a minute, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to cream a half a stick of butter, or a stick of butter, excuse me, half a cup. And half a cup of sugar and a half a teaspoon of vanilla. Cream that up. So my butter and sugar mixture is nice and creamed, and I'm going to add this floppy mixture to it. What it does is it stabilizes the filling. Now some people might like to use whipped cream as a filling, but it's not stable and it will really decrease the shelf life of your Twinkie, and we know we all want to have a Twinkie with a long shelf life. Let that go, mix it up for about 5 minutes because you want it to be really light and fluffy. So my frosting looks good and fluffy, and the next thing I'm going to do, stop the mixture. I'm going to transfer it to this little ramekin here, and I'm going to put it in the fridge to cool where it will thicken up while I make the cake. One thing you want to do is to cover, just as you would with pudding or anything that would develop a skin on it, you want to cover that frosting up. Doesn't that look good? That's like Twinkie-licious. You want to cover that up nice and tight with a piece of saran wrap and put it in the fridge while you make your cake. So the next thing we're going to do is make the cake for the Twinkies, and it's really just a sponge cake. But before I get into making the batter, I'm going to whip the egg whites until they form stiff peaks using my very retro Sunbeam Power Burst mixer. Hopefully it'll work. And I got for a yard sale for $1. I'm just going to turn that up and let them go. Okay, these are starting to look pretty good now. Let's check it and see if they're holding a nice stiff peak. That looks pretty good. All right, so I'm going to set those aside and I'm going to move into making the batter. So the first thing we're going to do is mix the dry ingredients, and I'm going to take this off to make it a little easier. I've got 1.5 cups of flour, 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, 1.5 cups of granulated sugar, a tablespoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of salt. That's it. Mix that up just so that it's blended. Then I'm going to add my 3/4 cup of cold water, 1/2 cup of canola oil, 7 egg yolks, and let that blend up so it's nice and smooth. Okay, so the batter's looking nice and smooth, and what I'm going to do now is add my egg whites in thirds. I'll just take this off, and I'm going to fold them in just as you would fold in any egg whites, trying hard not to get all the air out of them. So I'm just going to take about 1/3 of that in. See if I can take this off so you can get a better shot. There you go, and just start folding it in, like so. Cut through the middle, swirl it around. This makes a lot of batter. You get about 24 Twinkies out of this. So I only have 1 pan, but if you can get 2 pans, it'll go a lot faster. Otherwise, you just use what you have. Add another 1/3. Okay, I'm going to add in my last 1/3 of egg whites and blend this in. Now, right here next to me, you see a canoe pan, and I actually sent away for this. It's made by Norpro. I've never seen it anywhere else. I bought it online. And one thing that you need to know if you're going to try to make these Twinkies is to spray the pan very, very liberally with some cooking spray, because these cakes are extremely sticky. And even when well sprayed, they take some work to get out. Alrighty, so that's looking pretty good. Everything's blended in. And now I'm going to start to spoon it into the pans. You fill them about 2/3 full. Some people like to use a ladle because they feel like they have a little bit more control over it. I find it's easier just to pour it in, and I will try not to make too much of a mess. I do about 2/3 full. And while I'm doing that, I'll tell you a true story, a Twinkie story. So I grew up in Cambridge in the 60s, which now I just dated myself on film. But anyway, my mother was a rabid health food person before it was trendy to be so. And we were not allowed to have Twinkies or Devil Dogs or anything like that. So I saved up all my money and I went to the store on Concord Ave and I bought a box of Twinkies, brought them home, crawled under the front porch and ate the whole box. I was sick as a dog. Had to explain to my mother why, and she was horrified because I was eating Twinkies. But they were really good. I mean, who saves up money to buy Twinkies, right? Me. Okay, so I've just finished filling my cake pan, and now I'm going to cook these in a 350 oven for 8 to 12 minutes. They're going to puff way up. You want to wait until they're golden brown, but not too dark. And don't worry if they look like, how will these ever be a Twinkie? Because once you take them out, they sink back down, and then they look perfect once you turn them out of the pan. So I've taken my Twinkies out of the oven. I let them sit in the pan for about 5 minutes, and then I just used a little rubber spatula to ease the edges out of them. And then you lift them out carefully, and this is what they look like. Flip them over, and you have a beautiful, real-looking Twinkie, because it is a real Twinkie. So now I'm going to fill it. I've cooled my filling, and if you buy the Norpro pan, it comes with this little injector thing, but you can also just use a pastry bag. Or you could even use a baggie with a tip added to it. So you're going to hold it in your hand, turn it upside down, and you're going to inject it in 3 places. And what's cool about this is that you can actually feel it and see it filling, because it's a sponge cake. You don't want to overfill it, but fill it so it's got plenty of nice filling in it. Turn it over, and let me do another one so you can see. Put it in there, give it a good squeeze, and you can see the sponge just sort of puffing up. Like that. I'll do one more. And then I think what I'll do is I'll break it open so you can take a look and see what it looks like. Let me make this one nice and full. Let me break one in half so you can see what that looks like. There you go. A Twinkie. I must have a bite. Oh, excellent. A real Twinkie that you can eat guilt-free because it's relatively good for you.